When billionaire Liam Anderson sees a kind-hearted waitress, Emma, caring for his disabled son, Ethan, his world changes forever. Used to solving problems with money, Liam never realized that what Ethan needed most was his presence. Emma's warmth and patience break through the walls Liam built around his heart, teaching him that love is more valuable than wealth. As gratitude turns into something deeper, Liam faces a choice: hold on to his past or embrace the future Emma and Ethan offer him. If you love these kinds of stories, don't forget to comment where you're watching from. Support us by liking and subscribing to our YouTube channel. The evening rush had slowed, and Emma Carter wiped the counter with a tired but content sigh. The scent of coffee and fresh pies lingered in the air, blending with the low hum of conversation and the occasional clatter of dishes. She had been on her feet for almost 10 hours straight, yet she wasn't one to complain. Hard work didn't scare her, it was survival. Ever since her parents passed away in a tragic car accident 5 years ago, she had been the sole provider for her younger sister, Lily. At just 26, Emma had learned the weight of responsibility early. She worked double shifts at Millie's Diner, a small but cozy spot that had been around for decades. The pay wasn't great, but the people were kind, and that was enough to keep her going. She glanced at the old clock on the wall, 7:45 p.m. Just a little longer until she could go home. But before she could finish wiping the counter, the bell above the door chimed, signaling a new customer. Emma instinctively straightened her apron and turned to greet them. A tall man in an expensive charcoal suit walked in, his polished shoes tapping against the tile floor. He exuded an air of quiet authority, the kind that made people glance twice. But it wasn't him that caught Emma's attention, it was the small boy beside him. The child, no older than 7 or 8, had soft brown hair and bright blue eyes that held both innocence and quiet sadness. He sat stiffly in his chair as his father helped him settle in. That's when Emma noticed the tremor in the boy's hands as he reached for the menu. He struggled to keep hold of it, his fingers curling awkwardly. Her heart squeezed. Cerebral palsy, she thought. She had seen it before. Lily had volunteered at a center for children with disabilities, and Emma had learned a thing or two just by listening to her sister talk about the kids there. Emma walked over with a warm smile. "Good evening. My name's Emma. What can I get for you two tonight?" The man barely looked up. "Burger. Medium. No pickles." His tone was crisp, businesslike. Then he turned to his son. "Ethan, tell her what you want." Ethan's small fingers struggled to keep the menu steady. His lips moved, but no words came out. His face flushed with frustration, his hands shaking harder as he tried to hold back tears. Emma didn't miss the way his father sighed and glanced at his watch, clearly impatient. Kneeling beside Ethan, she softened her voice. "Hey buddy, take your time. Want me to help?" Ethan hesitated, then gave a small nod. Emma gently took the menu and pointed to different items. "How about pancakes? Or maybe some mac and cheese?" Ethan's face lit up. He nodded eagerly at the mac and cheese. "Great choice. That's my favorite too." Emma grinned before turning to his father. "And something to drink for you both?" The man finally looked at her, his deep gray eyes studying her for a moment. "Water for me." And for him. He hesitated, as if he didn't actually know his son's favorite drink. "Chocolate milk," Ethan whispered, barely audible. Emma nodded. Chocolate milk coming right up. She could feel the billionaire's gaze follow her as she walked away. But she wasn't concerned about him. Her heart was with the little boy who had just needed someone to be patient with him. Minutes later, Emma returned with their food. She placed the burger and water in front of the father, then set the mac and cheese and chocolate milk in front of Ethan. The boy smiled, but as he tried to grab his spoon, his hands trembled, and the utensil slipped from his fingers, clattering onto the plate. He froze. His face paled, fear flashing in his eyes. Emma reacted instinctively. She kneeled beside him again, picking up the spoon and placing it gently in his hand, guiding his fingers around it. "It's okay, Ethan. Let's try again," she said softly, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Ethan's eyes filled with relief as he held the spoon more steadily this time. He took a bite and a small smile spread across his face. His father, who had been scrolling through his phone, finally looked up. He stared at Emma, something flickering in his expression, something unreadable. She had no idea that her simple act of kindness would change all of their lives forever.
Liam Anderson wasn't used to being ignored. As the CEO of one of the most successful investment firms in the country, people always rushed to impress him. Employees, business partners, even strangers who recognized his name. But this waitress, Emma, hadn't even flinched when she learned who he was. She had barely looked at him, instead directing all her attention to Ethan. And what was more shocking, his son actually responded to her. Liam watched as Ethan took small, careful bites of his mac and cheese, a look of quiet determination on his face. Emma's gentle encouragement had helped his son more in the past 5 minutes than Liam had in months. Guilt twisted in his chest. He had spent years drowning himself in work, convincing himself that money would solve all their problems. He made sure Ethan had the best doctors, the best therapists, the best teachers. But in all of that, he had never stopped to ask himself if he was actually being the best father. Ethan had always been a quiet child, but after losing his mother, he had withdrawn even more. Liam had thrown himself into expanding his company, believing that if he just built enough wealth, he could protect his son from everything. But no amount of money could replace the look of joy on Ethan's face as he sat with this waitress, eating his meal without fear of judgment. Liam cleared his throat, pushing away the unfamiliar discomfort. "Ethan," he said, his voice measured. "You like the food?" Ethan nodded, his gaze still fixed on his plate. "It's good." Emma smiled. "Told you mac and cheese was a solid choice." Liam studied her for a moment. There was no hesitation in her kindness, no forced politeness like the people in his world, just pure, effortless warmth. He wasn't sure what to make of it. A few minutes later, Emma returned to check on them. "Everything okay? Need anything else?" Liam shook his head. "We're fine." But as she turned to leave, Ethan's spoon slipped again, clattering onto the table. The boy flinched, his shoulders tensing as if expecting a reprimand. Emma didn't hesitate. She picked up the spoon, wiped it off with a napkin, and placed it gently back in his hand. "No big deal. Happens to all of us." Ethan looked up at her, his small fingers curling tightly around the spoon. For the first time that night, he smiled. And for some reason, that simple moment hit Liam harder than any business deal ever had. When the meal was finished, Liam pulled out his wallet and placed a $100 bill on the table. But before he could leave, he turned to Emma. "You were good with him," he said, his voice lower than usual. "Most people don't have that kind of patience." Emma simply shrugged. "He just needed a little help." Liam hesitated. He wasn't used to asking for favors, but something about Emma's presence made him believe she could be exactly what Ethan needed. "Would you consider working for me? As Ethan's private caregiver?" Emma blinked, clearly surprised. Then, to Liam's shock, she laughed lightly. "I don't do things for money, Mr. Anderson. I do them because they're right." Liam had no response. For the first time in years, he had met someone who didn't care about his wealth or status. And as Emma walked away, he realized he wasn't sure what to do with that.
Emma stood behind the counter, arms crossed, watching Liam closely. His sharp gray eyes studied her, as if trying to gauge whether she was serious. She had just made it clear she would only spend time with Ethan if Liam did too. The billionaire seemed caught off guard, and for the first time that evening, Emma saw something crack in his composed exterior. Liam exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "You're asking me to be there too?" His voice wasn't dismissive, just hesitant. Emma nodded. "Yes. Ethan needs more than just someone to keep him company. He needs his father." Liam's jaw tightened, a flicker of something unreadable in his expression. "I provide for him," he said, almost defensively. Emma sighed. "I know. But kids don't just need money, Liam. They need love, attention. Someone to cheer them on when they struggle. Someone to remind them they're not a burden." Liam looked away, his gaze flickering to the floor. Emma had struck a nerve, and she knew it. But she wasn't trying to be cruel. She just couldn't ignore the way Ethan had looked at his father tonight, yearning for something Liam didn't seem to realize he was withholding. Seconds stretched between them before Liam finally spoke, his voice quieter this time. And you really think me being there will change anything? Emma softened. I know it will. Liam took a deep breath, and for a moment, Emma thought he was going to refuse. But then, to her surprise, he nodded. All right, I'll do it. His agreement was firm, but there was something in his voice, uncertainty, maybe even fear. Emma smiled, sensing the weight of what this moment meant for him. Good. We'll start small. Maybe a park day or a trip to the library, somewhere Ethan feels comfortable. Liam hesitated before asking, when do we start? Emma grinned. Tomorrow. Liam blinked. That soon? Why wait? She challenged, tilting her head. Ethan deserves it. Something in Liam's expression shifted, and for the first time, he looked at her not as an employee or an outsider, but as someone who genuinely cared about his son. After a beat, he gave a small nod. Tomorrow then. As he turned to leave, Emma called after him. Hey, Liam. He paused, glancing over his shoulder. She smirked. Try smiling more. I think Ethan would love to see that. Liam huffed a quiet laugh before shaking his head. Work on it. As he walked out into the night, Emma exhaled, realizing that tonight had been more than just an ordinary shift at the diner. She had just agreed to change not only Ethan's life, but maybe Liam's too. And somehow, deep down, she knew that her own life was about to change as well. The next morning, Emma stood outside the grand iron gates of the Anderson estate, gripping the straps of her worn-out bag. She had known Liam was wealthy, but seeing his home in person was another thing entirely. The mansion stretched across acres, with pristine gardens, marble columns, and a long, winding driveway leading to the front entrance. It was the kind of place she had only ever seen in magazines. She exhaled, shaking off the intimidation creeping in. This wasn't about Liam's wealth. This was about Ethan. Before she could press the intercom, the gates swung open smoothly, and a sleek black car rolled down the driveway. It stopped a few feet from her, and the tinted window lowered to reveal Liam behind the wheel. He looked different, not in his usual crisp suit, but in a simple navy sweater and dark jeans. He seemed almost normal. You walked here? He asked, eyebrows slightly raised. Emma smirked. What? Your security team didn't alert you that a suspicious waitress was approaching? Liam actually chuckled, shaking his head. Get in. We're taking Ethan to the park. Emma hesitated before slipping into the passenger seat. The interior smelled like leather and expensive cologne, a stark contrast to the old diner where she spent most of her days. She glanced at the back seat and found Ethan strapped in, his blue eyes lighting up when he saw her. Hey, buddy, she greeted warmly. Excited for the park? Ethan nodded, his fingers fidgeting against his seatbelt. Yeah. I like the swings. Emma smiled. Good, because I happen to be a swing expert. Liam pulled out of the driveway, glancing at her. A swing expert? She grinned. I can jump off midair and land perfectly every time. Ethan's eyes widened. Really? Really? Emma said confidently, winking. Ethan giggled, and for the first time, Liam saw something he hadn't in a long time, his son genuinely laughing. His grip on the steering wheel loosened slightly as he listened to them chat, their easy conversation filling the car with warmth. When they arrived at the park, Ethan eagerly reached for the door handle, but his fingers trembled too much to grip it properly. Before Liam could react, Emma had already stepped out and opened it for him. There you go, champ. Ethan beamed, carefully sliding out of the car. Liam watched as Emma walked beside him, never rushing him, never making him feel small for needing help. For the next hour, Ethan played like any other kid. Emma pushed him on the swings, cheering him on, while Liam sat on a nearby bench, observing. It was strange, seeing his son so open, so carefree. He had spent so much time trying to protect Ethan from the world that he had forgotten to let him live in it. Want to give it a try? Emma suddenly asked, standing beside him. Liam frowned. Give what a try? She gestured to Ethan on the swings. Push him. He wants you to. Liam hesitated. I don't know if I'd do it right. Emma softened. It's not about doing it right, Liam. It's about being there. For a moment he did nothing. Then, slowly, he rose from the bench and walked over to Ethan. His son looked up at him expectantly. Liam placed his hands gently on the swing's chains, unsure at first, then gave a small push. Ethan laughed as he swung forward, his giggles filling the air. Liam felt something shift inside him. Emma watched with a knowing smile. She had a feeling this was only the beginning of something far bigger than any of them had expected. Liam had never thought something as simple as pushing his son on a swing could feel so important. Each time Ethan swung forward, his laughter echoed through the park, a sound Liam realized he hadn't heard nearly enough. He had spent so long making sure Ethan had everything he needed, therapy, medical care, security, but he had never considered that maybe what Ethan needed most was him. Emma stood a few feet away, arms crossed with a satisfied smile. She didn't say anything, didn't push Liam further. She just let the moment unfold naturally. After a while, Ethan slowed down, dragging his feet against the mulch. "Dad?" he asked softly. Liam crouched beside him. "Yeah, buddy." Ethan hesitated, as if afraid to say what was on his mind. Then, finally, he whispered, "Can we do this again?" Liam's chest tightened. It was such a simple request, but he knew what Ethan was really asking. "Will you spend more time with me? Will you be there?" He swallowed the lump in his throat and nodded. "Yeah. We can do this again. As many times as you want." Ethan's face lit up, and Liam felt something shift inside him. He had closed himself off for so long, convincing himself that drowning in work was the best way to cope with his grief. But standing here, looking at his son's happiness, he realized how much he had missed. Emma, sensing the moment between father and son, clapped her hands together. "All right, who's up for ice cream?" Ethan gasped. "Me." Liam chuckled. "I should have known you'd say that." Minutes later, they sat on a wooden bench by an ice cream stand, Ethan happily digging into a bowl of vanilla with rainbow sprinkles while Emma and Liam sipped coffee. "So," Emma said, glancing at Liam. "How does it feel?" Liam raised an eyebrow. "How does what feel?" She nodded toward Ethan. "Actually spending time with him. No business calls. No distractions. Just this." Liam exhaled, glancing at his son, who was humming happily as he ate. "It feels different." He looked back at her, his voice quieter. "It feels right." Emma smiled. "But because he needs more of this." Liam studied her for a moment, realizing how effortlessly she had changed things. Not just for Ethan, but for him, too. She hadn't lectured him, hadn't judged him. She had simply shown him a different way, a better way. "You know," he said, smirking slightly, "you're a little bossy." Emma gasped dramatically. "Me? Bossy? I prefer the term helpfully assertive." Liam chuckled, shaking his head. He hadn't laughed like this in years. Ethan suddenly tugged on Emma's sleeve. "You should come over sometime." Emma blinked, surprised. "To your house?" Ethan nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah. We can play games, and you can see my favorite books, and we can make cookies." Emma hesitated, glancing at Liam. He met her gaze, something unreadable in his eyes. Then, after a moment, he gave a small nod. Emma turned back to Ethan and smiled. "Okay, buddy. I'd love that." Ethan cheered, and as they finished their ice cream, Liam realized something unexpected. Emma wasn't just changing Ethan's life. She was changing his too. Later that evening, as Emma walked up the grand staircase inside Liam's mansion, she couldn't help but feel slightly out of place. The ceilings were impossibly high, chandeliers glittered above her, and everything looked as if it belonged in a museum rather than a home. She had never stepped foot in a place so luxurious, yet somehow, the warmth of Ethan's excitement made it feel welcoming. "Come on, Emma. My room's this way," Ethan called, his small hand gripping hers as he eagerly led her down the long hallway. Liam followed a few steps behind, hands in his pockets, watching them. He wasn't sure why he had agreed to let Emma into their home so soon, but the way Ethan had looked at her at the park, the way he asked for her to come, it was impossible to say no. His son rarely got attached to people, and yet, in just days, Emma had become someone special to him. Ethan pushed open his bedroom door, revealing a space filled with books, toys, and colorful paintings on the walls. Emma smiled, taking it all in. "Wow, buddy, this is amazing. You've got a whole library in here." Ethan beamed. Dad gets me all the books I want. Emma glanced at Liam, who simply shrugged. He loves to read. Ethan climbed onto his bed, grabbing one of his favorite storybooks. Can you read to me? Emma's heart melted. She sat beside him, adjusting the blanket over his legs, and began reading. As she spoke, Ethan leaned against her, his body relaxing. Liam stood by the door, watching in silence. It was rare for Ethan to let his guard down like this, even with his own caregivers. After a few pages, Emma glanced up at Liam. You should read with us. Liam tensed slightly. Ethan's eyes lit up. Yeah, Dad. Come sit. There was no hesitation in his son's voice, no fear that Liam would say no. Emma smiled encouragingly, and for the first time, Liam felt himself hesitate for a different reason, not because he was unsure, but because he didn't want to say no. Slowly, he stepped forward and sat on the other side of Ethan. Emma handed him the book, and after a deep breath, Liam began reading. His voice was steady, smooth, and as he read, Ethan snuggled closer between them. Emma watched them, her heart swelling. This was what Ethan needed. His father, present and engaged. By the time they finished the story, Ethan's eyelids were heavy, and he let out a sleepy yawn. That was the best story, he murmured. Liam tucked the blanket around him. Sleep tight, buddy. Ethan smiled drowsily. Good night, Dad. Good night, Emma. Emma brushed his hair back gently. Good night, champ. As they stepped out of the room, Liam closed the door quietly, exhaling. He turned to Emma, his voice lower now. Thank you. Emma raised an eyebrow. For what? Liam hesitated. For this. Emma softened. He's an amazing kid, Liam. He just needed you to see that you're exactly what he needs. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the air between them shifted. Liam had spent years keeping people at a distance, but somehow, this woman, this waitress who had appeared out of nowhere, had broken through the walls he hadn't even realized he built. Emma gave him a small smile. I should go. Liam nodded, though a part of him didn't want her to leave. I'll drive you home. As they walked down the hallway together, something unspoken lingered between them. Emma had come into their lives for Ethan, but maybe, just maybe, she was changing Liam's life too. The drive to Emma's apartment was quiet at first, but not the uncomfortable kind. It was the kind filled with unspoken thoughts, the kind where both people were aware that something had shifted between them but weren't sure how to address it. Liam kept one hand on the wheel, his other resting near the gear shift, occasionally stealing glances at Emma as she gazed out the window. You live on this side of town? He finally asked, breaking the silence. Emma smirked. Surprised? Liam hesitated. I guess I never thought about where you lived. Emma chuckled. Yeah, well, I don't have a private driveway and 10 security guards, if that's what you're wondering. Liam smirked but didn't argue. Instead, he turned down a quieter street, pulling up in front of a modest apartment complex. It was neat but nowhere near the luxury he was used to. Emma unbuckled her seatbelt but hesitated before opening the door. You don't have to walk me up, she said, turning to him. Liam raised an eyebrow. And let you get kidnapped in the 3 seconds it takes to get to your door? Not a chance. Emma rolled her eyes but smiled as she stepped out, Liam following behind. As they reached her door, she hesitated, fumbling with her keys. Tonight was nice, she admitted, looking up at him. Liam nodded. Yeah, it was. Emma exhaled, leaning against the doorframe. Ethan was so happy. I haven't seen him smile like that before. Liam ran a hand through his hair. Me neither. He sighed. I've spent so much time trying to make sure he had everything, I never stopped to realize that I was part of what he needed. Emma softened. It's not too late, Liam. You're trying now. That's what matters. For a moment, they just looked at each other, something deep and unspoken hanging between them. Emma wasn't sure when things had started to shift, not just with Ethan, but with Liam, too. Liam finally spoke, his voice lower. I meant it, you know. When I said thank you. Emma smiled. I know. He took a small step closer. Emma. Her breath caught slightly. Yeah. Liam hesitated, as if caught between logic and instinct. Then, after a beat, he exhaled and took a step back instead. I should go. Emma nodded, something unreadable flickering in her eyes. Yeah. Okay. Liam gave her one last look before turning and walking down the hallway. Emma watched him go, her heart pounding just a little harder than before. As she stepped inside her apartment, she exhaled, realizing that tonight wasn't just about Ethan. Something else had begun between them. Something she wasn't sure either of them was ready to face. The next few days passed in a blur. Liam found himself thinking about Emma more often than he cared to admit. Every time he looked at Ethan, saw his growing excitement for life, he knew exactly who was responsible for it. Emma had stepped into their world so effortlessly, but instead of disrupting it, she had fixed him. One evening, after finishing up work earlier than usual, Liam made a decision. He drove straight to the diner, parking outside as he watched Emma through the window. She was laughing with a customer, wiping down a table, completely unaware of his presence. He had never seen someone so real, so unguarded. Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside. Emma noticed him immediately, raising an eyebrow as he slid into a booth. Well, Mr. Anderson, she teased. Did the billionaire suddenly crave a greasy burger? Liam smirked. No. Just a certain bossy waitress. Emma rolled her eyes but smiled as she sat across from him. All right, what's up? Liam hesitated, running a hand through his hair. Ethan keeps asking about you. He wants to know when you're coming over again. Emma's heart softened. Tell him I'll visit soon. Liam exhaled. I think it's more than just Ethan. Her breath caught slightly. What do you mean? Liam looked at her, really looked at her. You didn't just change his life. You changed mine too. Emma swallowed, her pulse quickening. Liam. He reached across the table, gently taking her hand. I've spent so much time building walls, convincing myself that I was protecting Ethan, protecting myself. But then you showed up, and suddenly, everything was different. I was different. Emma bit her lip, searching his eyes. Liam, I didn't do anything special. He shook his head. Yes, you did. You reminded me what it means to live again. And I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose you. Emma's heart pounded. For so long, she had told herself that Liam was just Ethan's father, that what she felt was nothing more than admiration. But sitting here, looking at him, she knew it was so much more. Say something, Liam murmured. Emma exhaled, then squeezed his hand. I don't want to lose you either. Liam's eyes softened, a slow smile spreading across his face. He stood, pulling her up with him. Then don't. Without another word, he cupped her face gently, giving her every chance to pull away. But she didn't. Instead, she leaned in, meeting him halfway as their lips finally met. It was soft, slow, filled with every unspoken emotion between them. When they finally pulled apart, Emma laughed breathlessly. I can't believe this is happening. Liam smirked. Believe it, Emma. Because I'm not letting go. From that moment on, neither of them did. Ethan had wished for a family, and in the end, he had gotten one. One built not by wealth, but by love. And for Liam and Emma, it was only the beginning. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to check out more of our videos. We have plenty of inspiring and powerful stories waiting for you. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.